Let's just dive right into this explainer and unpack what is, honestly, a profoundly dramatic narrative from antiquity, the story of Jesus curing a leper. Welcome, everyone. We're going to break down this famous historical encounter step by step. And we're not just looking at the basic events here. We want to really understand the deep cultural and social shockwaves it represents. As we get into this, you'll see how massive societal boundaries were completely shattered in just a few fleeting moments.
But to actually understand the true stakes of this encounter, we first need to drop into the dusty, desperate reality of our protagonists. You know, we so often read these ancient accounts through a modern medical lens, right? But back then, this wasn't just a trip to the doctor. The core issue, the true devastation of this condition, was total, absolute social and religious isolation. Imagine being entirely cut off from your family, your community, and your place of worship.
Which brings us to Section 1, the burden of leprosy and this state of extreme exile.
It is absolutely crucial to frame this leper not just as a medical patient, but as a total outcast completely severed from their community. See, the term leprosy in these ancient texts was kind of this broad catch-all for various skin conditions. But the diagnosis? It carried a very specific, devastating sentence: exile. You were legally and religiously deemed unclean. This meant living outside the city gates, wearing torn clothes, and get this, actually having to verbally warn people to stay away from you if they got too close. It was a complete erasure of your social identity. You aren't just sick, you were effectively a ghost to the society you once belonged to.
Moving right along into Section 2, a desperate, risky plea that ends up shattering boundaries.
Picture this scene for a second. A leper approaches a rabbi. By simply walking up to Jesus, this man is taking an immense risk. He's breaking major social and religious rules of the time just by entering the exact same physical space as a healthy, ritually clean religious teacher. The crowd surrounding Jesus would have likely just pulled back in sheer panic and horror. The tension here is literally off the charts. I mean, the leper is risking severe reprimand, or honestly much worse, just to close that physical distance.
And this brilliantly illustrates the vulnerability of the moment. The man falls to his knees and begs, "If you are willing." Notice what he says there. He doesn't say, "if you are able." This iconic plea doesn't question the ability or the power of Jesus to heal him. He questions the willingness. He's essentially asking, are you willing to cross this massive social boundary for someone as untouchable as me? It's a profound question of compassion, not just capability.
And that leads us to Section 3, the divine touch, crossing the ultimate boundary.
So the crucial point is how this completely shocking sequence unfolds through 4 distinct microactions. First, deep compassion. The narrative specifically notes a real emotional response from Jesus. But then comes step 2, the physical touch. This is the unthinkable act. Reaching out and touching a leper was strictly forbidden. It made you legally and ritually unclean yourself. Yet before the healing even occurs, the physical touch happens. The touch bridges the gap of isolation before the disease is even gone. Then step 3, the authoritative spoken word, be clean. And finally, step 4, the immediate healing. Just like that, the disease simply vanishes.
Now for Section 4, the unexpected aftermath, which features a pretty shocking twist. You'd probably expect a massive, joyous public celebration to follow a miracle like this, right? Well, instead, we see an absolute immediate transformation of this man's status. He shifts from a completely isolated outcast to a restored member of society. His skin is clear, yes, but more importantly, his exile is over. He can go home. He can hug his family. He can enter the place of worship. The physical healing was really simply the mechanism to achieve the actual miracle, which was the full restoration of his humanity and his community.
But here is where the narrative throws us a total curveball. Jesus gives him 2 very specific, almost contradictory commands. First, show yourself to the priest. Okay, that makes sense. It was the ancient protocol. The priest was essentially the public health official who could legally declare the man clean so he could re-enter society. But the second command? It's kind of baffling. He says, tell no one else. Jesus surprisingly demands that he keeps this incredible, life-altering miracle a complete secret.
And that leaves us with a profound question. Why was the divine touch meant to be kept a secret? This brings us face to face with what scholars call the messianic secret. I mean, why would a figure possessing such immense power, who just performed this act of profound compassion and social restoration, want to hide it from the world? Was it to avoid being seen merely as a miracle worker? Or maybe to control the timeline of his rising political and religious friction? As you step away from this explainer today, I want you to really consider that question. When you hold the power to completely shatter the darkest societal boundaries, why might your very first instinct be to ask for silence?
Think about that for a bit.
Now we'll catch you next time.